gynecologist, and we call her the atom bomb of our forum, Chota atom bomb. And Dr. Vandana, yes, so Dr. Vandana Gupta will be speaking on insights of AUB. Welcome, Dr. Vandana.
For the kind words, and I'll be talking on insights of AUB. So, abnormal uterine bleeding, which has been recoined from dysfunctional uterine bleeding, which we have been using for ages and ages together. So AUB is a spectrum of problem which is shared by the whole world, and in India it is to the tune of 18% and the whole world around 11%. So the burden of HMB in India is around 8 to 9% of the women from India and neighboring countries come with excessive bleeding, and they range from 42 to 53% from adolescent to perimenopausal to menopausal age group, and 15% of all gynae OPD visits are because of heavy menstrual bleeding, and 25% of gynecological surgeries account because of heavy menstrual bleeding. AUB impacts up to 30% of women at some time in their life. That means 1 in 3 women experiences heavy menstrual bleeding, and 83% women would say that it has an impact on their daily life. 63% of HMB women would have iron deficiency because of continuous blood loss, and 25% would have received multiple transfusions. So the burden is a lot, and this iron deficiency makes the woman prone to so many other diseases when she's anemic. So her quality of life goes bad. There is a heavy impact on her quality of life. She feels uncomfortable. There's iron deficiency anemia, decrease in work productivity, there's anxiety about the future, decreased quality of life, and negative impact on the relationship with partner. And over 60% of women diagnosed with HMB ended up having hysterectomy within 5 years from the diagnosis. And the sad part is that 1/3 of the hysterectomies were removed uteruses which were anatomically normal. So we are aiming to save those uteruses. So what is abnormal uterine bleeding, which was previously dysfunctional uterine bleeding, and many other names were given, menorrhagia, metrorrhagia, and so on. So abnormal uterine bleeding has been, because it is uterine bleeding, so it is related to menstrual loss. It could be a change in her menstrual loss according to NICE and according to ACOG, but practically it is the same definition. The change in menstrual loss could be a change in regularity, volume, frequency, or duration, and occurs in the absence of pregnancy according to ACOG. And NICE says a vaginal bleeding pattern differs from that experienced by age-matched general female population. These definitions have been adopted by Public Awareness Committee of FOPSI. So we can define acute when an acute phase occurs, when the patient has enough bleeding so as to so the clinician thinks that she requires urgent or emergent interventions. This is a FIGO definition, and if it persists for the previous 6 months, then it is termed as chronic AUB. So the FIGO adopted the nomenclature for AUB so that it becomes, the diagnosis becomes universal. The different operators give different names. So with this, they have aimed at somehow unifying all the clinicians. So could be structural causes PALM coin, the structural causes PALM, and non-structural causes as coin. So the structural causes are discrete in nature, can be measured visually with imaging techniques and on histopathology. So PALM would be polyps, adenomyosis, leiomyoma, malignancy, and hypoplasia. And non-structural causes, these are the entities that are not defined by imaging or histopathology. They are defined by testing. So coagulopathy is C, ovulatory dysfunction, endometrial lesions, iatrogenic, and non-defined. This is another presentation of the same PALM and coin given by FIGO. So there are so many international guidelines on the management of AUB, but we are worried about India. We need a good clinical practice review, because all of us are practicing in a different way, diverse clinical practices. There's a lack of good clinical practice guidelines specific to Indian context. Inconsistency in day-to-day management of AUB has been seen, and high prevalence of AUB among women in India has been seen. So we come to the evaluation, investigation, and diagnosis. So investigation, diagnosis, and evaluation, it goes on the same lines as with any other diseases, through history, through preliminary assessment, that is general clinical examinations, and the investigation. These are all grade A quality evidences. So history we are taking for the menstrual pattern, could be duration, amount, cycle length, regularity, and intermenstrual bleed, pain in the period, maybe dysmenorrhea, intermenstrual pain, or dyspnea. Concomitant medications that the patient is taking may be responsible for her bleed. So anticoagulants, tamoxifen, hormonal contraceptives, antidepressants, and antipsychotics, and corticosteroids. And we could have a history suggestive of bleeding, diathesis, PCOS, or thyroid disorder. And how do we examine the patient? We look at her pallor, weight, features suggestive of PCOS and thyroid. Abdominal palpation, per speculum examination, or per vaginal examination is the routine for all of us. And investigation, we start with blood testing, that is laboratory testing, then imaging, and then specialized tests and endometrial histopathology. So the recommendation specific to history, if there is a bleeding disorder, what is the criteria for positive screen? That the lady has had a heavy menstrual bleed since menarche, or one of the following: she's had a PPH, or she has bleeding with dental work or surgery-related bleeding, or at least two of the following: bruising and epistaxis episodes greater than 1 per month, of frequent gum bleeding, or a family history of bleeding symptoms. So we examine weight, BMI, pallor, thyroid, breast, acne, FG scoring if any hirsutism is present, for abdominal, per speculum, and per vaginal examination as a routine. So the lab testing we come to are the ultrasound. The lab testing. The slide is missing. The lab testing comes to complete blood counts with platelets and recommendation with AUV. Pregnancy has to be ruled out. Thyroid disorders as and when required, TSH and T3 and T4. Coagulation disorders when clinically indicated. We look for bleeding time, platelets, and prothrombin time in all, partial thromboplastin time in all adolescents and adults. And with the positive screen of coagulopathies, we are looking for von Willebrand's disease, von Willebrand factor antigen, von Willebrand ristrocytin cofactor activity, and factor 8 estimation, along with the hematologist's opinion going side by side. So imaging includes ultrasound, which we are very, very friendly, and that is the base of our investigations to be done in AUB to evaluate uterus adnexa endometrial thickness. It's a grade A recommendation. And ultrasound imaging is mandatory. Doppler can be done if required. We are suspecting AV malformations or malignancy, and to differentiate between fibroids and adenomyoma. 3D ultrasounds can be used for evaluating intramyometrial lesion in selected patients, and sonoinfusion salpingography to look for intracavitary lesion in suspected, and hysteroscopy is not available. Then we can do for SIS. MRI is optional. It's just to locate the fibroids before surgery, and maybe to differentiate between fibroids and adenomyomas. Hysteroscopy is not for all AUBs where we are suspecting an intracavitary lesions. It provides a direct visualization and facilitates directed biopsies. And nowadays we say it's see and treat. If it's a small polyp, that also can be removed at the same sitting. So the patient gets treatment at the same time. So good clinical practice recommendation for endometrial assessment and biopsy. So endometrial assessment can be done by histopathology, dilatation curettage, which is out, or hysteroscopy in specific cases. Endometrial histopathology is recommended in all patients who are above 40 years of age. In less than 40 years of age, as Dr. Ela has already specified, they are required in specific cases with irregular bleeding, obesity, endometrial thickness greater than 12, because diabetes mellitus, history of malignancy of ovary, breast, and endometrial colon, use of tamoxifen or HRT or breast cancer, AUB unresponsive of medical treatment, and hereditary non-polyposis colorectal syndrome or Lynch syndrome. So endometrial aspiration is the procedure of choice rather than DNC. So the algorithms for the diagnosis, this is just a simple algorithm. The patient presents with AUB, we are taking medical history, physical history, and initial assessment. Suspected coagulopathies, then she goes this line, we are looking at the bleeding disorders, and we put her as AUB coagulopathy, AUB-C. And when we are doing her blood investigations and ultrasound, which are considered to be normal, and the woman is greater than 30 years of age, and we are doing endometrial thickness and imaging. Endometrial tissue and sampling is done in women who are above 40 years, in less than 40 years, in specific conditions. Then we are putting them as malignancy or hyperplasia, as Dr. Ela has already explained. And if it is present, then it is AUBM. If it is not present, then they are labeled as AUBO, where there is ovulatory dysfunction, or AUBE when there is endometrial dysfunction. No, she is having a regular cycle bleed. And suspected structural anomalies would come in leiomyomas, adenomyosis, and polyps. So management of patient, these are different algorithms. We'll just go quickly. The simple treatment options, these are the treatment options which are available to us. We can use different permutation and combinations for all. Could be hormonal. First is hormonal, which we are using as tranexamic acid. Hormonal, definitely we use a non-steroidal like orniloxapine. Surgical in certain clinical conditions. The treatment all depends on the clinical condition, overall acuity, suspected etiology, desire for future fertility, and underlying medical problem. And surgical depends on clinical stability, severity of bleeding, contraindications or lack of response to medication, desire for future fertility. The surgical has become restricted, and we are trying to decrease it further. Our campaign is Safe for Uterus. So the current treatment options are pharmacological. We said we start with NSAIDs and antifibrinolytics, then oral contraceptive, non-cyclic progestogens, and then we come to levonorgestrel uterine system. And then surgical endometrial ablation is out, hysterectomy and embolization in specialized centers, because it is new and still experimental. So we have got different algorithms for patients with AUB arms, and then this is with polyp. The patient has a simple polyp, she is young, we do a hysteroscopy and remove the polyp. Although the algorithm says we are not doing a histopathology, but anything, I believe any tissue removed from the uterus should be given for histopathological examination. In a patient who is senior, we do a polypectomy, and then at the same time we can do LNG IUS insertion and further management patient if required, if malignancy turns out. So algorithm for adenomyosis. In patients with adenomyosis, we are looking for fertility or non-fertility. So if patients are requiring fertility but not in near future, see, the mainstay would be hormonal treatment with adenomyosis. So we are looking either for LNG for a short term, not for 3 years or 5 years, and gonadotropin-releasing hormones agonists. They could be also a treatment for the short term, and they would help in ART if she is going for ART also. Others are, we can use combined oral contraceptive. Danazol is resurfacing as intrauterine preparations and vaginal preparations. NSAIDs and progestogens are also recommended. Women not desirous of fertility, we go for long-term GnRH agonists with advec therapy, and hysterectomy as a last resort. Adenomyomectomy is a conservative surgery that may be offered in selected cases presenting with fertility who strongly desire a baby. So leiomyoma, this is the subclassification. 0 and 1 are intracavitary ones, and 2 to 5 are intramyometrial ones, and 6 and 7 are subserous ones. This is again a classification being given by FIGO, and it has made our life much more easier. So treatment algorithm in women, again it will depend if it is an intracavitary or the submucosal, then less than 4 centimeters we go for hysteroscopic myomectomy. Greater than 4 centimeters we can go for abdominal myomectomy. Many people still prefer going, experienced hysteroscopic surgeons still go for two-stage procedure, doing a hysteroscopic myomectomy. So it depends from person to person. And all intramural and submucous, the 2 to 6 types they meet. If the patient wants conception in the near future and the uterine cavity we know is not being distorted, then LNG can be used, tranexamic acid, COCs or NSAIDs can be used. And if the conception is not required, again we can give LNG. And if the patient is elderly, not wanting family completed, hysterectomy can also be offered. Women greater than 40 years, not desirous of fertility, hysterectomy is a definitive treatment. In these patients also, if it is a large myoma, this is an opinion of many people that if it is a single large myoma, a myomectomy can also be offered, because a lady greater than 40 years of age is approaching menopause, and then probably she would not, that is what we plan, not to report the uterus, and she will be approaching menopause soon. So this is again leiomyoma. When we are waiting for the treatment, we are building up the patient, or we are waiting for the myomectomy, GnRH agonist with advectorably is recommended in younger patients, also in selected perimenopausal women, so that they can tide over to menopause. And in long-term management, in all these where the uterine cavity is not distorted, LNG-IUS has been recommended. So these are the other options that with ulipristal acetate came with a bang, and it is again gone with a bang because of liver disorders. We are scared using it. Endometrial ablation is also not done nowadays. So the new terms, Dr. Ila has already, this AUBM has already been covered by Dr. Ila in great detail and beautifully explained by her, so I'm skipping these. So now, see, this was the algorithm for PALM. Now we are coming to structural, non-structural abnormalities that AUB coined. So we have the permutation combination as the same in the women with AUBC. Non-hormonal treatment can be given. Tranexamic acid is the base. We give 1 gram 4 times a day, and hormonal treatment is a secondary option, could be given COCs or LNG-IUS. In refractory cases in von Willebrand disease and uncalculed uterine bleeding with above medical management, specific factor replacement wherever possible or desmopressin can be given, and a consultation and referral to hematologist is mandatory. When surgical interventions are indicated for appropriate pre, intra or post-operative management of bleeding or factor replacement and desmopressin, we can use in meantime, we can use the non-hormonal treatment. So treatment guidelines for ovulatory disorders. In women not desiring conception, COCs can be given as the first line up to 6 to 12 months. Cyclical luteal phase progesterones 10 to 14s are not really used. In AUBO, we use continuous. We use cyclically but continuous. So for 21 days, norepinephrine is given as an initial therapy in acute episodes of bleeding for short-term management for up to 3 months. And it says it is suggested that we have to assess the response after 1 year of medical management and decide to continue or discontinue the treatment. Surgical intervention is not recommended unless and unless there is evidence of persistence, AUB, or failure of medical management. If COCs are contraindicated, patients are ambulate or uncooperative, LNG-IUS is a very good recommendation. In adolescents in AUBO, both hormonal and non-hormonal therapies can be prescribed. And endometrial, again, AUBE, the treatment would be nearly same as AUBO and M. AUB that occurs due to primary disorders of endometrium and secondary to endometrial infection or inflammation, abnormalities in the local inflammatory response or endometrial vasculogenesis in the context of predictable and cyclic menstrual bleeding with no other definable cause comes under endometrial E. So these are overlapping with all others. So management is similar to the management of O, and we are looking to give her a hormonal or non-hormonal according to the patient's requirement. So iatrogenic causes patient with unscheduled endometrial bleeding due to using of gonadal steroids, estrogen, progesterone androgens, or gonadal steroid related therapy, that is GnRH agonists, aromatase inhibitors, SCRMs, or progesterone receptor modulators, anticoagulants. So the treatment, see, if we have diagnosed her AUBI, the treatment will be to stop these. So algorithm, this is the way this definition will help us in categorizing the patients for the treatment. So whenever feasible, medications causing AUB should be changed to other alternatives. If no alternatives are available, LNG-IUS can be given. So in the lesions which are in the patients in where there is no cause detected, in women AUBN which is not defined, medical management is first when the patient wants desirous of contraception in near future. Then for a small term we can use LNG-IUS. COCs can be recommended. For AUB, that is mainly cyclic or is predictable. Non-hormonal options such as NSAIDs and tranexamic acid are given, mainly which are cyclic. We know it is ovulatory. Cyclic, basically it is ovulatory. And surgical treatment is an option when all fails. GnRH agonist also can be given with ADVEC therapy. And in women with not yet defined AV malformations, uterine artery embolization, hysterectomy is the last resort. So the recommendations of AUB, AUB-C would be non-hormonal is a primary treatment, tranexamic acid. Hormonal would be LNG. With ovulatory disorders, desirous of fertility. COS, not desirous of, or maybe desirous of fertility also. COCs for first few months or not desirous of fertility in 6 months. And if COC is contraindicated with LNG, IUS, surgical treatment is not the treatment of choice. AUBE is as AUBO. I is treat the cause, and or otherwise you can apply LNG IUS in cases where nothing is defined, women not desirous of contraception, LNG IUS. If medical surgical treatment fails, GnRH agonist have to be preferred. So endometrial ablation is nowadays out. Uterine artery embolization is for AV malformations, symptomatic fibroid with significant symptoms, no desire of fertility but want to preserve the uterus, poor surgical risk, severely anemic patient requiring immediate intervention. We have seen that there is symptomatic improvement for about 84% at 6 months and 83% at 24 months. So it's a pretty good data. Reduction in fibroid volume to the tune of 40 to 70%. Re-intervention, although is required in 15 to 28% patients, maybe they require hysterectomy, myomectomy, or repeat embolization. So MRI guided high intensity focused ultrasound is another alternative, although expensive, and there's a specific target point temperature rises to 55 to 90 degrees centigrade, causes coagulative necrosis. Concurrent MRI accurate tissue mapping is done, real-time temperature feedback is taken. It is non-invasive, OPD based, and no radiation. And it can be given, the limitations are it cannot be given when the fibroid is too big or too deep, and there are multiple myomas. There's a presence of scar tissue above the loops in the sonication path, excessive thick subcutaneous layer of exterior family wall, vascular myoma, inability to withstand stationary position, and not recommended in women wishing to preserve fertility. And cost is a very big issue. So response 71% at 6 months, 51% at 12 months. So this is also an issue. And after 1 year, if we are losing the benefits, then what? So re-intervention to the tune of 35% is pretty high. So it's still being offered in limited patients. So the key recommendations for diagnosis is proper evaluations through history, assessment, abdominal, vaginal, cervical, investigation, lab testing for coagulopathies, pregnancy, and thyroid. Imaging is TVS is the gold standard, and Doppler for AV and 3D ultrasound is usually not required. SIS for intracavitative lesions. MRI also to map the exact location and differentiate between fibroids and adenomyomas. Hysteroscopy to diagnose uterine abnormalities, or maybe hysteroscopy is for diagnosis and removal of polyps, small polyps if seen at the so it is C entry. Endometrial assessment and biopsy when the patient is greater than 40 years. In less than 40 years in specific cases, hysteroscopy performed when the endometrium is thick, but we get inadequate tissue on endometrial aspiration. So we are ruling out basically polyps where no SIS was. And key recommendations for management, LNG IUS is in many indications like AUB due to multiple polyps after polypectomy, AUB-A woman that is adenomyoma desirous of fertility in near future, and intramural or subserosal leiomyoma type 3 and 4 with caution. We can definitely give hyperplasia without atypia in women with ovulatory dysfunction, and COCs are contraindicated. Because of LNG intrauterine system, minimal dose of progesterone is given. AUB due to iatrogenic causes, and AUB where cause has not been defined. So the take-home messages are: AUB is a common problem for menarche to menopause. Palm coin has come as a God's gift to us. It's a system simplified. The clinical classification provides an organized approach for diagnosis, evaluation, and treatment as well. Individualized and cafeteria approach can be given. Newer drugs are promising but need to be evaluated, and evidence-based management can avoid unnecessary restrictions. Thank you. Back